They said I was an accident, a mistake that somehow survived the cleanup. At my sister's graduation, my parents made a joke about me. Not behind closed doors, on stage into a microphone in front of hundreds of people. Everyone laughed. Even Claire, and I sat there frozen, realizing that to them, I'd never been a person, just a punchline that grew up. That night, while applause still echoed in my head, I made a quiet promise to myself, if they think I'm their mistake, I'll make sure they never stop remembering it. My name is Isla Bennett, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the spare, the afterthought. Every family has one, right? The golden child and the shadow that follows her. In mine, the golden one was Claire, my older sister, and I was the placeholder between their perfect photographs. You could see it in every frame that hung on the living room wall. Claire in the center, eyes bright, medals gleaming, my parents' hands resting proudly on her shoulders. If I was in the shot at all, I was half turned, half lit, half anything. When people asked about their children, my dad always said, "Claire's our pride and joy." Then he'd stop talking. There was never a second sentence. I used to think love was a test, that if I worked hard enough, I'd earn it. So I kept my grades spotless, joined every club, stayed up late just to make them proud. When I got my first paycheck from the campus bookstore, I bought Mom a silk scarf. She smiled politely and said, "That's sweet, honey. But you shouldn't waste your money. Claire's getting me a Coach bag." Her voice was gentle, almost kind, but the words landed like glass in my chest. I started noticing the pattern early. Every time I achieved something, Claire did something bigger. I got a 3.9 GPA. Claire graduated with honors. I saved for months to buy Mom flowers. Claire booked her a spa trip. It wasn't even her fault. Claire didn't ask to be perfect. But perfection, when repeated long enough, turns everyone around it invisible. My 16th birthday was the night I realized I was the ghost of my own house. They were on a business trip, so I cut my cake alone, my reflection flickering in the kitchen window. 2 weeks later, they threw Claire a backyard party. Hundreds of guests, live band, fireworks. Dad stood on the deck, holding a microphone like a preacher. "This girl," he said, voice trembling with pride, "makes my life worth living." Everyone clapped. I just smiled. I'd gotten good at smiling for other people's happiness. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was fine. But deep down, I was waiting for a moment when someone would finally say my name without adding, "Claire's sister." That moment never came. In my junior year of high school, I overheard Mom talking to Aunt Anna. Her voice carried easily through the half-open door. "Honestly, we should have stopped after Claire. Isla just doesn't fit in. She's off somehow." I remember standing there, frozen, fingers tightening around a glass of water until it cracked. She didn't sound cruel, just tired, as if having me was a mistake she'd learned to live with. And that made it worse. When I finally left for college, they didn't drive me to campus. No goodbye, no hugs, no family photo. Just a text from Mom. "Don't forget to call Claire for advice once you settle in." I stared at the message and laughed out loud. It was the first time I realized laughter could sound like surrender. Still, I kept trying, sending postcards, short updates, pretending to care about their replies. But every response was a variation of the same theme. Claire's success, Claire's promotion, Claire's engagement. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a spectator to the legend of the perfect child. And yet, some foolish part of me still wanted to belong. Maybe it's human nature to crave the love that hurts you the most. So when Claire's graduation invitation came, I said yes. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe they'd finally look at me and see something other than regret. I put on my nicest dress, drove 3 hours to Boston, and took my seat in the third row. The hall was grand, chandeliers, velvet seats, gold-trimmed podiums. Claire was radiant, of course. Mom fussed with her gown, Dad adjusted his tie, and I tried to disappear into the crowd. When they called my parents on stage to give a speech, I clapped politely. I thought they'd talk about Claire's hard work, her resilience. But instead, they made me a prop in their comedy routine. Dad's laughter rang through the speakers. We always joke that we should have stopped after Claire. 2 kids, only 1 genius, right? The audience laughed. Mom joined in, tapping his arm. Good thing Claire came first, or we'd have lost hope by now. The laughter filled the hall, echoing relentless. I sat there, hands folded, cheeks burning. I wanted to vanish. To melt into the velvet chair and never exist again. When the ceremony ended, Claire got her diploma, a car key, and a standing ovation. I got silence. That night, I drove home through the empty city, headlights slicing through rain. The words kept replaying in my head, over and over until they didn't hurt anymore. They just hardened. By the time I reached my apartment, the pain had turned into something sharper. Not anger. Not hate, clarity. If I was their mistake, then I'd become the lesson they could never forget. I didn't go home that night. I walked along the Charles River until the lights blurred in my eyes and the wind cut through my coat. Boston in May still carries a kind of cold that creeps under your skin. A quiet, lonely cold that doesn't leave even when you go inside. Later, my phone buzzed, a group message from my parents. What a perfect night. Claire shined like the sun. So proud of you, sweetheart. I stared at the screen for a while, then typed, I was there too. No one replied. The silence after that was familiar. I'd grown up inside it weeks past. Claire's face appeared all over social media, arms around our parents, smiling in every frame. Her caption read, family is everything. I wasn't tagged. In one photo, my hand was visible on the edge of the frame, cropped at the wrist. I didn't comment. I just saved it. Proof that invisibility can be documented. A month later, Mom called. We're having dinner by the river. A family celebration. Claire's moving to Manhattan. I almost said no. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. It makes you return to fires that already burned you once. So I went. The restaurant was polished, all white linens and candlelight. Claire looked perfect, again. Her new city glow suited her. Mom greeted me with a smile that felt rehearsed. Isla! You look healthy, still working that cute cafe job? Still do, I said, folding my napkin. How's the firm? Claire smiled. Intense, but worth it. Dad raised his glass, grinning. So, Isla, what's next? Can't pour coffee forever, right? I kept my voice steady. I'm thinking of going to grad school, psychology. He smirked. That's great. Maybe Claire can tell you about stress management. They laughed. I didn't. It's strange how laughter can sound like static when you're the only one who doesn't belong. Something inside me snapped then, quietly, like a wire giving way. The air around me felt thinner, almost unreal. I stood. I should go. Mom blinked. Dinner's not over. It was over before it began. I left before anyone could stop me. That night, I packed my things and moved out of my apartment. I didn't tell them where I went. I took 2 jobs, barista by day, research assistant by night, and spent the next 2 years building a life where no one compared me to anyone else. Silence stopped feeling like punishment. It became peace. Then one afternoon, an email arrived. From Mom, urgent. Inside, only 2 lines. Claire's in trouble. Call us. When I did, her voice shook. She's using Isla, pills, maybe worse. She lost her job. We don't know what to do. Then Dad's voice cut in. Sharp, defensive. You didn't have anything to do with this, did you? I laughed softly. No, Dad, I didn't push her off the pedestal. You did, when you built it too high for her to stand. The silence that followed was thick, almost satisfying. For the first time in my life, they didn't have a script. I didn't rush to help. That night, I sat on my couch, laptop open, typing Claire's name into Google. There it was, a mugshot, a headline. Former attorney suspended after drug possession. The same proud face that once filled our hallway photos, now hollow, pale, unrecognizable. I should have felt pity. But what I felt was something colder. inevitability. The kind of ending that was written years before it arrived. 3 days later, Mom called again. "Please, Isla, come home." "She needs you." "We all do." "You need me to fix your image," I said. "That's different." "That's not fair." "Neither was the last 20 years. And I hung up. A week later, Dad showed up in Cambridge. He looked older, not in years, but in defeat. "I know I've failed you," he said. "Claire needs someone who won't judge her. She trusts you." I stared at him. "Funny. I trusted you once, too." Still, I agreed to see her. The house was the same, spotless, curated, suffocating. Claire sat on the couch, sleeves pulled over trembling hands. Her voice cracked when she saw me. "I didn't think you'd come." I almost didn't. "You hate me." "No, I hate what they did to us." She cried. Not the loud kind, but the quiet, exhausted kind that comes from years of pretending. "They needed me to be perfect," she said. And I couldn't breathe under it. "Perfection isn't love," I replied. "It's performance." When I left, Dad followed me outside. "You'll help her, right?" I already did. I showed her the door. That night, I emailed Claire the address of a recovery center in Vermont, one I knew from my volunteer work. No message, no advice, just the link. If she wanted to be saved, she'd have to walk through it herself. 3 days later, an email came back. No words. Just a photo of her in front of the clinic's sign, bundled in a coat, eyes clear for the first time in years. I smiled, genuinely, for the first time in as long as I could remember. I didn't tell my parents. I wanted them to think she was gone. Because absence teaches louder than lectures ever could. Their calls became frantic, desperate. "Isla, answer us. Please don't do this. Don't tell anyone." But I didn't reply. They taught me silence. I was just returning the lesson. I poured everything into my studies: trauma recovery, family systems, emotional neglect. Every case study felt personal. Every theory familiar. My research notes began to read like confessions. Then, one morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. My mother's handwriting, fragile, uneven. "Your father's had another stroke. Claire's in treatment. Please come home. We're trying to make things right." I read it twice. Then I wrote one line back. "Sometimes silence is the only way to keep memories clean." I didn't send it. Some words are meant to stay between you and the ghosts. Winter arrived early that year. Vermont turned white overnight, as if someone had erased all the noise. I woke up before sunrise every morning, watched the world covered in frost, and wondered how peace could look so much like loneliness. Then one day, the phone rang again. "Isla?" My mother's voice cracked. "Your father's gone." "The second stroke?" It was too much. I didn't move. Didn't speak. "He wanted you to know he was sorry." Maybe he was. But regret is a late language. It only speaks when there's no one left to hear it. I didn't go to the funeral. I sent white lilies. No name, no card. When the florist asked if I wanted to add a note, I said, "Right, silence can be a goodbye too." 3 weeks later, Claire called. Her voice sounded different, fragile but whole. "You heard, didn't you?" I did. "Mom's not herself. She keeps asking why you didn't come." I looked out the window, snow drifting under the pale morning light. "Are you okay, Claire?" "Better. There's a sign at the recovery center that says, 'Healing begins when the silence ends.' I think about you every day." I smiled faintly. "You don't need to think of me, Claire. Just don't go back. Do you forgive me?" she asked. "Forgiveness is too pretty a word for what we had," I said softly. "I don't hate you. But I don't forget." The line went quiet. That was the last time we spoke. Months later, I gave a talk at a seminar called Family and Healing. A student asked me, "What's the most important thing you've learned from your story?" I thought for a moment before answering. That silence isn't always escape. Sometimes it's the only way to make others hear their own echo. The room fell silent. I looked down at my hands, calloused, steady, and felt something like peace. That night, I came home, opened my window, and let the snow drift in. On my desk sat an old photograph, Claire and me as kids, laughing, holding hands, our parents blurred in the background. It didn't hurt anymore. It just looked distant. And I finally understood. Love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about drawing the line. I lit a candle and whispered, "I'm home now." Just not the way they imagined. Then I blew it out. Outside, the snow kept falling. Quiet, endless, merciful. Because sometimes the kindest punishment is silence. They called me a mistake. But sometimes the mistake is the lesson God meant for them to learn.